The god Thor was wandering around. Thor was a very powerful god. He was the god of thunder. He had an arch-enemy, his half-brother, Loki. Thor was big in stature. Loki was skinny and wily. A trickster was Loki, and he would often irritate and annoy Thor, and then they would get into a thunderous fight. The lightning, the thunder rolled, but back into their respective corners of the land of the gods did they go. From they looked down upon the Isle of Wight, and there they saw a small dwarf, as dwarfs often are. This dwarf was carrying a magical hammer, forged from meteorites. Loki looked at this hammer, and he wanted it. Thor looked at the hammer, and he wanted it too. But for the moment, it was in the hands of the small dwarf. Loki decided he was going to descend from the land of the gods, and he was going to come down to the Isle of Wight to have the hammer for his own. So he summoned the Rainbow Bridge. He leapt aboard the Rainbow Bridge, and slowly, it descended to the island. Whoops! And off he hops. Thought Thor. Loki's going to get that hammer if I don't do something quick. So he too summoned the Rainbow Bridge, and he too leapt aboard and descended slowly to the island. The two half-brothers got into a bit of a tiff, and they had another one of those thunderous fights. Back. For suddenly there appeared the magical hammer. Now the hammer had many magical qualities, one of which it could choose its owner. So first it tested Loki. Do I want to be Loki's master? Then he went to Thor. Then he went back to Loki. And Thor. And Loki. But no, he decided he was going to become the owner of Thor. And the hammer went to Thor, and Thor was mighty happy. And Loki was mighty unhappy. And he went off in a huff. Now Thor, who lived in Thorley, was very pleased with his hammer, and he went out and he played with his hammer because it had many magical skills. One thing it could do, if he threw it, it would come back. This was handy in battle because he could throw it, it could hit an enemy and come back into his hand. This was one of its many skills. The other one, as you might have noticed, was to do with winter, because on the island it was a cold winter. The snows came, the frosts occurred, and the land was covered in deep snow and ice. But the hammer could deal with this. The hammer would break the winter's spell. So it smashed the snow, and it smashed the ice. And then the grip of winter was broken, and spring sprung on the island. See, spring, get it? Okay, so now Loki was distraught. He had not got the hammer. He had come down from the land of the gods, and had nothing to do. So he looked out over the Needles and he saw a passing Viking ship crammed with a range of mysterious armies. Loki thought, I am not powerful enough on my own to retain the hammer. I need friends, I need supporters, I need someone to work with. So he hitched a ride on the Viking ship and he sailed off past the Needles. There he is, sailing off past the Needles to make a plan to get the hammer back. And that's how we've ended up here today, now. Thank you, that was the Shiny Puppet Show.